Hello and welcome to another episode of Speculative Speculations. I'm Varsha.
And I'm Jared.
And I'm Chris.
And this is a series where we talk about sci-fi stories in all their forms. Steve and Dan, who are usually with us, couldn't join us today. They will hopefully be back next week. Today's topic, or today's portion of book that we're discussing, is going to be Embassytown parts 2 and 3 of it, which brings us to about 187 pages in the UK paperback edition. The short story for today is The Star Stealers by Edmond Hamilton. We usually read about 100 pages plus a short story every week. So next week we'll go to the next 100 or so pages of Embassytown. With that, what did you guys think? I feel like we talked last time about a lot of the setup that happened, and it just it was like climbing up a roller coaster slowly, right? Now everything, we've started the ride down, it feels like, almost.
Yeah, I think for that analogy, I think it's the first hill on the roller coaster.
Yeah,
I have a feeling
fair.
that the next hill is going to be coming up, and it's going to be bigger, and we're going to be screaming louder.
Dan sort of promised by the halfway point, which we're roughly at, we would at least have a clue what was going on, and he's right there. I definitely think we have a good sense of at least what has happened in some of the aspects of the story and what some things mean, but yet still have a lot to be divulged to us in certain key events or certain key things. And one of the nice things that I found actually reading this bit was that a lot of the characters are completely oblivious to what's going on as well. They have no idea, especially the people that I thought knew what was going on. Ezra has no idea either, so like that's good. I feel in good company there.
Yeah.
And what was I going to say? Yeah, I really love the setup of this is a first-person narrative, and sometimes it feels like, why are you explaining these things? Are you assuming that I'm not going to be from your planet? But this setup of Embassytown, which is pretty unknown to even people from this world or from this universe, I think is really cool in that it gives the narrator that we're following a reason to explain many things that we should know, but people from the world would know, and then it gets clunky, but it's not here because of how the Embassytown is set up, I think, in the context of the rest of the universe.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and it makes an excellent vehicle for to tell a first-person story when you have that kind of alien place that is not just alien to the reader, but it's alien to the rest of the universe too. It's an isolated area. It's what's it, like an outpost or something like that, almost. And so you have you have a lot to discover here, because our narrator also has some to discover as well, and all the people around her have even more to discover than she does. And so you find her often relating information to them, which relates information to us, and so on and so forth. And I like the character. I love the character. I think the character, she's great. I think she's a great character, and so you wanna wish the best for her, while at the same time, stuff is going to happen that's probably not going to be the best for her in the future. But for now, it was very interesting reading these two sections, and her being the simile, and what that means going forward here. And I love how we ran into other similes, and there was just a lot going on there that we'll get into here as we go along.
Yeah, there's definitely that sense of some people desperate to be like part of the conversation, literally in some ways. Like some people, like their husband, see wanting to be part of this world, in terms of being part of the language, both in terms of studying it, but also having some sort of prominence within society, and language is his gateway into that, whereas you have our main character Vicha, who's sort of oblivious to why she's important, but yes, has some sort of fan club, the Spanish dancer, etc., that is kind of following her about everywhere, and has her in high esteem, and she gets invited to all of these events, even though other people can't see why, and so it creates this kind of really strange hierarchy in society between people who have pushed themselves to the front, like politicians or people that are put in very top, but that the balance of power actually is sort of a bit muddled up, because also the hosts have their own agenda and things that they want out of it, and so there is no real hierarchy in it, and so people who would seem to be above of each in society are sort of coming to her for advice and coming saying, like, you seem to know people, you seem to be caught in the middle, like this, as in every man stroke woman, you're really important to figuring out what's going on in this world, and I really like that concept of having that viewpoint as being somewhere in the middle, but that being sort of maybe the best place to be in the society in some ways.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Chris, about the people wanting to be important, because that ties into the outpost feel of it. That because in the Wild West you could go into a town and you could become important for no particular reason whatsoever, and so as long as you had some sort of talent or skill or what have you, and that seems to be the case here, where people suddenly have this sense of importance because of where they came from, or just because what they want to do while they're there, and so it has that outpost feel where things could change very quickly if something were to happen.
And I think this difference between the classes aspect of what you said, Chris, I think that is very interesting when you compare it to Perdido Street Station, for instance, because I think the class difference is a very important theme, I guess, that is explored in Perdido Street Station. But here it's almost dismissed. I think one of the dissidents, they're like, oh, with their... I don't even remember. There's some guy who doesn't like how the staff function, apparently, and our character basically laughs them out of the room along with everyone else. Well, she's being more sympathetic than the others are. But that's an interesting contrast. Like, one, for the reason that Mieville's not one-trick pony, so to speak, and he has built a really different societal structure here than the ones in Perdido Street Station. And I think, what you said, Jared, that this feels right for the setting that we are currently placed in.
Yeah, and just because we ended at the end of part 3.
Yeah.
And even she says at the end of part 3 that she didn't know the scale of what was unfolding.
Yeah.
So that was unknown to her at the time, and she didn't. And she actually was looking back and thinking that this was actually a pretty good time of her life, which makes you wonder. Oh boy, does that mean the rest coming up is really bad? So you got to wonder about that. But it was interesting that she thought that way, because it was a good time for her, but it was also the beginning of whatever crisis is going to happen. This is the beginning of it right here, and so I like that that contrast in her own viewpoint, in her own character.
Yeah, I like how she at some point semi gives up. She doesn't really, because we still get a coherent picture out of it, but gives up and says, I'm trying to make a narrative out of things that just happen. And I'm trying to, I guess it's her trying to make sense of what happened and how to structure them and try to, I don't know, put it in some cast that makes sense to her, but not really. She gives up halfway through. I loved that section. And sometimes when authors do that, I wonder if it's them writing about themselves. I don't think that's the case here, but...
I wondered the same thing. I was just like, oh, was he having a bad writing day? He's like, I just want to give up. And then, he might have pulled himself together later and started again. But
the way that scene ends and she gets incorporated back into society, like, if I was made of not as stern stuff as I am, I might have brought a tear to my eye. That bit about the robot and the hug at the end. Like, I thought that was so beautifully written. It did communicate that um there was relationships in this world that we really haven't seen the like of, because a lot of the relationships that we've been given are either for convenience, societal relationships, or just pure sex. You know what I mean? There hasn't been that feeling of intimacy or sort of connection between people. Even in our main character's relationship itself, there's never at any point have we had a sense that they were really drawn to each other, you know, on an emotional level rather than anything else. But yet we had that moment whereby she's locked herself away, and then the connection is made through a proxy of some sort, but that could be incredibly touching, you know.
Yeah, that was really cool. I loved that scene, and I think I really loved the android character. I think for two reasons. One, I think there's more going on with her than we are seeing because of all her periods of silence when what she's refusing to say or address, but also just as a friend, without a lot of the potential drama that could come from such a relationship, right? In the sense of like, is this a real person? How do I feel about myself for having this kind of being as a best friend, and so on and so forth? Things that I guess we are maybe grappling with today with the AI chat tools and so on. I think it feels like we've moved on past that, decided that they are valid members of society and that they are friends. She has like these brief inserts where she's like, oh, she responded, or the Turingware that runs her responded, but it still doesn't feel like she's making less of it in any way. It just feels like she's correcting herself to think the right way about this being rather than being dismissive of whether or not she can feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a nice juxtaposition towards other people within the book, because again, while being a robot or otherwise, it just shows you that to be important to somebody, you only need a couple of simple things, which is one, to listen and be present, you know. And the other people that are in her life aren't doing neither of those things. Again, they've got very much got their own agenda and stuff, and we sort of get this feeling of connection from that point just by those two simple facets of being, you know, which comes from the robot android kind of thing.
Yeah. Speaking of relationships, how fascinating was her relationship with the ambassador, that one of them liked her more than the other did, and the other one was almost resentful of her. It feels like he's being forced into the relationship against his will, but that was fascinating. That was brilliantly done.
Yeah, and I can see definitely how that might cause. It actually might be the cause of lack of intimacy, like Chris was saying. It's just a sexual relationship, and that's it. And she even mentions a few times that she doesn't want to bring something up, and then I think the one time she tried, she got the wrong guy or whatever, and
Yeah.
she mixed them up, and that was the end of the relationship there, right? So it was very interesting how that worked, and I think he puts a certain amount of words on the page for that scene, but I don't know about you guys, but I was reading a lot more into that scene than what was on the page, because I was trying to figure out how this worked and how these strange being, this ambassador being, was thinking, but how also she was just taking in the whole situation. So that's a sign that Mieville really had something there. He had something special about in his writing in that point to really make you think more. I was thinking more words than what was actually there, and I thought that was great.
Yeah, and it also makes you wonder whether, given the mistake that she made, whether she's reading the expressions correctly. Like, even at the end of all of that, I don't know if we can believe her that the other one would, like, she reads hurt in his eyes that she got the wrong one, which I don't think you could reasonably expect people to, because they literally have something run on them to make them equal every day. But it's almost like she's projecting onto them what she wants to see. But maybe that's not true. We don't know. But yeah, I think that is a very good case of, I don't think we can trust this narrator just about this little thing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard enough to read regular people half the time. Never mind somebody who's two beings, but yet not quite. And it's it's very. Once again, Mieville has this penchant for creating these races or characters or creations, a meld of races that are so unique and different to what we've seen before, and really interesting. They're almost as fascinating as the hosts, because the hosts are completely alien. That they're kind of insect-like, but that there's a lot you don't know about them because they're just so alien. Whereas the ambassadors are made from humans, but in a way, we still don't know much about them and how they live day to day, and how and what their lives must be like. It's a really unique creation.
I thought these two sections really explored the alienness as being not that alien, funny enough. So we talked last week about the fact that the hosts and Embassytown felt a very alien, very different world, and how they speak and communicate that idea that when they speak, they speak with intention and all of that kind of stuff. And we were going, oh, that feels really strange. But I actually think Mieville used a couple of examples, like the one that you're just talking about, to say that actually words with intention is exactly what humans do as well, and actually they can cause offence, they can cause things to be right and wrong, and people can take them the wrong way. We do exactly the same thing, we just don't envisage and think about it in the same way, except when we view it in other people and in other races, we can go, oh god, that's really odd and strange. But there were a couple of times when he kind of pointed the finger at that and kind of went, see, we sort of do this already, but don't. Yeah, it isn't something that really registers with us in the same way. But I thought that happened a couple of times, and it was really interesting that he viewed it through that way.
I thought that I think I know the section that you're referring to because I highlighted it. There was one conversation where I think our narrator, she I forget the exchange, but they talk about the fact that they're wondering whether the hosts have taken offense at hearing Ezra speak, and so they decide, and she says that is just done by natives overreacting to something. It's unless there is intention meant to be harmful or insulting, most people are okay. They don't mind explaining, which I thought is very important and very interesting as well, with some of the issues that, again, social media helps blow up. It feels like just not bad intentions, just maybe some miscommunication. So I really thought that was an important point, just being casually dropped in there, but that meant a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. I got a paragraph here that's kind of related to this topic here, and it says, there were those hosts who thought something better could have been said, and better thoughts therefore thought, had I only been made to do other things than I had, and that I could have been a better simile for those in need of one to speak precisely, to speak about those somethings other than me that I was, they would have asserted like. So there's a lot of convoluted wordplay in there in order to convey how the aliens might think. So he like last time we were saying how the hosts are so alien, but and they still are. But Chris, to your point, he did a lot of explaining in that manner to bring the aliens, into our headspace a little more, to try to understand them, and at the same time that having the characters try to understand them better as well. And it was brilliantly done. It's really well done.
And it means when we go on a bit, and we went a bit into book 3, when the lines do become blurred, both in terms of geography, language, and all the rest of it, it sort of feels a bit more natural at that stage that, they crossed into the human side to come and speak to them. And that is what caused the conflict rather than really anything else to do. People didn't like that change or that crossing of barriers in some ways. I want things to go back the way they were. When they're able to lie, some people more convincingly than other ones. All that, 'cause again, this is not the natural order of things. Needs to go back, and combine that then with the idea that some people feel kind of like they're being ignored in society. Again, you'd made the point before I started recording, Jared, here, that a lot of this echoes to a lot of other sci-fi that we've read over the past year or so, and a lot of the themes there, about oppression or people not being involved in society, and how they will use that opportunity or use whatever chance they can to force themselves in the world, in this case with very tragic consequences. Not always necessarily, but that is definitely a play here, because these people, while sort of important and being given a sort of role as being similes, also we're losing that, because if they're able to lie, then do I lose my importance in society? Will people care about me if we can't trust what's being said, etc.? So, and they step forward.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great point. I didn't think of it as the lies leading to the similes becoming less important. They are being used as to make lies, but eventually they will become irrelevant. I love that. I didn't think of that at all. That's really cool. Okay, let's talk about. Can we change topics? Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
The evil, I think, the notion of evil as discussed in this book, I thought was very interesting. One, there were 2 points that I wanted to bring up. One was when our narrator Avis, she says that the hosts don't have faith, so they don't have a notion of evil, which to me, or I think she wonders at whether they can have a notion of evil, which I'm like, do you need to believe or have a religious system to believe that evil, or like what is evil in this context that she's defining it as, that requires a faith to also exist? And the other aspect of it was that the final conflict that was precipitated by Sile and the other simile, I forget, deciding that their lying is incorporating evil into their society. One, I think, that again is interesting on many different levels, which is like, one is, how can you decide what's evil or not as an outsider, from an outside perspective, impose our sense of morality on a different culture? And I think in this case it clearly seems like something, well, to me it just doesn't sit right. But I wanted to bring up both those related points for discussion. I thought they are very interesting to think about.
I think he's just raising the question. That's all he's doing. He's definitely not giving us any kind of clue at all as to whether that concept will even take root in this alien society or not. There's that old saying that when a man lies, he murders a part of the world, right? But is that lying going to be equated to evil or not? Who knows? It's because it's the similes that turn into lies, that turn into then they kind of move beyond it, and in their strange alien way, and how they say, like, what was it they said, that like they're as a thing and then they are the thing, and then they keep going over that part of it. So if the lie of a simile no longer is a lie, will it then be evil, or will it just kind of, you know, fade away or whatever? It's an interesting question. It's an interesting topic to bring up, and I definitely don't expect them to answer it. I think that's something definitely placed there for us to think about on our own.
I think there's a couple of points spring to me about it. Just quite like you say, it's like people trying to enforce their own prejudice on somebody else. You know, this is the host of the Iraqi's society, so to speak, and they're sort of existing within it. But because they have a concept of right and wrong, good and evil, or the natural order of things, they are perceiving their actions through that lens, if you know what I mean. Whereas for the Iraqi, they are just exploring, you know, language for them, you know, a new facet or side of language for them. There's no inherent indication that they're going to use it for evil means, but because it goes against the natural order of things, and because they have experience of how lies project in the human world or in human society, then they kind of, you know, they're making a judgment call on that. But that idea of evil is not so much that there is evil being committed, but it's a natural order of what society says they can do. But like you said, Varsh, I thought it was really interesting that he kind of, or the observation was made that if these people can only ever speak intention and speak intention true, then the whole concept of evil and for godliness and all of that kind of stuff would never even have occurred to them, because there's no function for it in that society at all. Like, there's no need for it. It doesn't carry any meaning in the way that it does, say, in humanity or in current day Earth, when you're always questioning whether somebody's doing something for good intentions, selfish intentions, or whatever they're going to do. You know, that's always a possibility. Whereas for the Iraqi, you know, that obviously isn't at the start of the book, but then the concept of lying, but they're doing for fun more so than anything else, and showing off, nearly like bravado. Look what I can do. I've kind of got good at doing this, which obviously leads to an evil act, as it turns out. The real evil actually comes from just that playfulness.
Yeah, I think they have, in a sense, imposed human interpretations on the Aryaki, right? With almost treating Sir Eshal, the dude who got killed, Beehive, as a sort of revolutionary, someone who's trying to start a revolt of some sort. Like, that's the interpretation they imposed, and that's how I think, and at this point it stumps me why the Aryaki who did agree to go along with the murder plan did. Maybe we'll find out eventually, but it's interesting, like, because they have projected human values onto them, that they've decided that this needs to be snubbed. But also, the lying is not. So there is this notion of absolute evil or not, right? I think at least that's what she's referring to in the whole discussion on, like, needing faith and being able to tell lies to do evil. But lies in and of themselves aren't evil because that's what allows you to speak in metaphor and tell stories, and those are things apparently the society enjoys. It's not so they're not absolute evil. But so there is also this additional facet of reducing complexities into a single aspect and making drastic decisions or becoming a hater over just that one aspect of it, which I also thought is very interesting. Yeah.
One of the lines somebody said, I forget who it was. I think it was it Sile, a Skyle, a Skilly? He said, you don't have to understand something to blame someone for it.
Yes.
And that ties right into what you were saying there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sile, what's going on with him? Why would he manipulate the situation to bring it to this point? I guess he is a fanatic himself.
Yeah, we don't really know because we don't get in his head.
Yeah.
And he's keeping quiet with what's our main character's name again?
Avis,
Avis.
whichever.
Yeah, he's keeping quiet with her. So it's since it's only her perspective, we really don't know. We don't know if he's being talked to by somebody, if he's being directed to do things, or if he's just doing it on his own, if he's a fanatic, if he's there's a lot of unknowns there with that guy, and it's gonna be interesting.
But he certainly rose to prominence within that society from being he arrived as an observer, as an outsider. At the start, he was bringing him to the events, to observe and kind of do that. And then all of a sudden, he seems to be part of this inner cabal now that seem to have an idea what's going on in this society that we don't, obviously, at this time. We still don't know what the event was that caused, at the end of part 1, exactly what happened there when Ezra spoke. I guessed last week that it was part of the design of Ezra, but Ezra doesn't even know himself, so that kind of leaves this very much up in the air as being, what happened? I've read that page numerous times since to see if I could glean something from it. There really isn't an awful lot there, but much like the rest of the book, it feels thematic what's going on rather than necessarily an event. It feels like it's representative of something. It feels like something has happened that is more about the construct of power or influence or whatever else is going on within this world that seems to be broken. But the seals seems to be very much in the inside of knowing what that is, and the likes of Avicii and stuff. And some of the ambassadors aren't, which I think is really interesting.
There's also when the original reaction to what happens at the arrival ball is that we've offended the host somehow, which is interesting because they keep coming back. We know much later that they came back 2 days later and asked for him again. If that is the case, why would you consider offense? And even as they were leaving, they asked from the arrival ball, they said, where is Ezra? Where is Ezra? So why would you think offense unless that's the worldview that you're projecting? I think, I don't know, maybe I'm reading into this, but it feels like that's a very big aspect that's being explored, imposing your own worldview onto situations when they may not necessarily be true on multiple levels, right? With Avis and Calvin, or this imposing the notion of being offended on the hosts, and then of course there's the lies are evil aspect of it. It's like a spiraling exploration that's very interesting.
Yeah. And so we end with that ominous, that ominous words there, that the scale of the crisis that unfolded. So, this incident with the host is going to be scaled up in some manner, and I don't know. What do you think it's going to be? I mean, are the hosts going to take a bigger role in Embassytown itself? Are they going to be there more often? Is something else going to happen that's going to elevate their society to make them more, as aggressive as humans or something? Or I'm trying to think about what it could be based upon the information we're given with the one host who was killed. And was it Peartree that was killed?
No, Peartree participated in the killing, I thought.
Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah.
Sure, sure.
Yep. Yeah. So there's a lot of questions there about it, because it seems like we have one of these situations where something, something strange happens in Narcos maybe, but then, 100 years from now, you're reading in the history book that this happened and this caused, World War 12 50 years later, and so I just get the feeling that this is the event right here. This is it. We're gonna see the results later on down the line.
I'm very curious about what is going on with the ability of putting an entire group of hosts out of commission with just speaking one sentence, and also why they aren't responding to the ambassadors. Eventually this might lead to it seems to be centered around their ability to lie. I think you're right there. So maybe that is something that cannot be stopped. But we were talking about, so the next section is called addiction or addict, I guess, one of those. So what was I going to say? Yeah, so we got that description at the beginning of the section, of the first section, at some point in the first section, that when they are lied to, they behave as if they are intoxicated. And this feels like more of the same, their response to what Ezra was saying. And given that in the next section, it feels like they're coming for hits. And
oh man, that's right.
And somehow that feels like it has to do with the lying aspect of it too. Are they detecting an insane lie, a lie of an insane level whenever Ezra speaks, that they are being intoxicated by?
Wow. So maybe the introduction of language of certain sorts is almost like introducing opium to the masses,
Yeah.
Well, if language can convey truth and language can be lied and used to twist something else, it can also be used to exhilarate and, give extreme pleasure. I mean, you can think of some of the greatest orators in history. Every time they spoke, everybody listened, and people found themselves almost hypnotized by somebody's ability to orate so well and kind of do something to their classic examples of that throughout time, again for both good and evil, as it turned out. But again, that idea that they come back and say, we want to hear from Ezra, we want to hear from Ezra, we want to hear from Ezra, something that they're not getting from the other ambassadors. They're only getting from Ezra. We need to hear from him, and it sort of feels like the line in its own way might be a little bit of the obfuscate what we should be looking at here, which is the character and the communication of Ezra when he spoke publicly, and he just said, something to the effect that he's very honoured and gracious to be standing here meeting everybody here, and that was all that he said. There was nothing more else to it. So either that was enthralling, or the way they delivered it was enthralling, or it wasn't necessarily true. That he was honoured to be standing there, or something about that wasn't right or true. It was kind of didn't. I couldn't see anything in the words. I thought maybe in some of the language it might be different, but it was a very plain sentence, so it wasn't that. But it is. Mieville has this way of again creating this puzzle box for us, and kind of saying, right, here's a lot of clues, here's a lot of inputs, this is all the rest of it. What actually is happening at the far end of this? What is the function at the far end? Can you work it out? And unlike our previous books, I fully expect an answer here. I don't.
Yes, we know
I don't
exactly
see this
what's
being
going
left open. Yeah, I think we'll definitely know what's going on here. From this, because again, the expectation and the way things are being leaked out to us is pointing in that direction by giving us a little bit here and a little bit there.
Yeah, I do think I agree with you. It does feel like the kind of book where at least all the mysteries that were introduced will be tied up in a nice little bow, and it will be fine that it is. I think the explanations might make sense.
Well, we can only hope, right?
We can only hope. That was.
So how do you guys read the the weird names when they have the division line between them and
the top and the bottom?
Left hand side.
Yeah.
Left side of my brain, right hand side of the brain simultaneously. Why? What other way is there to read it?
I was just because I'm dying to hear it at the same time. Like I'm dying to hear like Ezra at the same time, Ez and Ra.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if maybe if I count to 3, and I say Ez, and Chris you say Ra, and then Vasha can tell us how it sounds.
Okay.
You ready? 1, 2, 3, Ez.
Ra.
So what happened, Chris?
Inclusive, I'm sure.
I think Chris had a delay or something. I don't know.
So it became
Ra. Well, that's what it sounded like. You heard it was actually at the same time, but your brain organized it into 2 bits. There you go.
And in the audio recording, it might actually happen at the same time because we're doing the background recording thing.
That's true.
Oh, maybe okay.
But
Jared, you're gonna have
rest
to listen
assured
to the
that if
episode.
it's not that, Varsha doctored it to make it sound like that. The editing.
There you go. That'll work.
Oh dear.
Just a little fun. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
But there's no doubt I am enjoying this much more. The second parts 2 and 3 I enjoyed a lot more reading wise than part 1, in terms of like not just wondering what was going on all the time, kind of thinking, right, I'm in this world now. I kind of understand what's happening. I understand a little bit of what a simile is. Sure. I understand a little bit of who the people are, the kind of dividing line and the layout, the geography of the world, etc. You know, all of that has been given to us to kind of start to fill in the blanks, I feel.
Yeah, and that's and that makes sense for the part of the book we're in. So it's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
There was one thing I thought that was interesting. Why can't I find the page? Page 136 in this copy of the book. But you know how the girl Avisis simile means you basically take what you can get. It feels a bit like this description of Embassytown, as if any of us could speak to the hosts, and for the cravat crew, even ignoring the fact of Embassytown's inevitable collapse in the event of their absence, without ambassadors who could speak to these men and women so proud of being similes to the hosts. So I think this was at the end of a section where they said that the societal structure is what it is, and it needs to stay that way because they are the only ones. The ambassadors are the only ones who can speak to the hosts. And I thought this was very interesting because it's in some way the simile. You take what you can get, and so like I thought it was nice that she's woven into the story like that as well.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I like it. So, which one of us is a simile, and which one of us is an example, and which one of us is a topic?
I'd like to be a topic, thank you very much.
What would your topic be?
Topic.
She says a topic. I just found that hilarious that these people are sitting around. He's like, yeah, this guy's a topic, and this guy's a simile, and this guy's an example.
You wouldn't last 2 seconds. You're the girl who reads the last page first.
Ah, yes, that's
I have
the
to
simile
be the
right
simile.
there. Yeah, you're the girl.
It's like the girl
who reads the last page. That's beautiful. That's perfect.
There you go.
All right, you had me. I was going to be all cool and say I am this topic singularity because the short story we're about to talk about sent me down a rabbit hole there. But thanks, Chris. Now I just get to be the girl who reads the last page first.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So who's the topic now, and what is your topic, and who's the example? Well, Jared is the man who makes filet mignon every Saturday.
That's the example. The man who enjoys himself on a Saturday, and the example is the filet mignon.
I'll take it.
Nice. So that leaves
and I'm
topic.
the topic. I must be the topic of the man who doesn't sleep. How does he function? You know, I'm always up late. I await more examples and topics so that we can actually fill in what the difference is, because it feels like everybody's a simile. What was interesting though is after the murder happened, is that people's similes changed to something else. I thought that was interesting. They lost their previous simile, that what they were known for beforehand has no meaning at all. Their simile is now means something else, and so more extreme acts mean that your simile can get overwritten, and basically they wrote themselves out of their place in society into something else, in much the same way as when somebody commits a murder in our society, regardless of what they did previously, people frame their whole life and existence by the evil act that they did, you know.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah, that I like that.
That is true. Yeah, very good. A great 80 pages.
Yeah,
It
very
was.
much. Yeah.
And I read almost all of it in one sitting.
Oh, I was
is-
talking about that. I still can't do that for this book. I think there's a lot to take in terms of a lot to process. So I would find myself very keen reading 30 pages and going, well, I need to think about what that means. I need to kind of sit in it for at least a few hours. Like, it was one day I did 20 pages and did another 20 pages a few hours later, because I was so eager to go back to it and kind of like, well, give me a bit more. But still struggling to do it in big chunks, because it is sort of dense in a lot of ways, in terms of ideas especially.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, it is.
it was riveting. I agree about it being dense in terms of ideas, but it was riveting. I could not put it down. So, which is nice for me, because I don't know if it's the books I'm choosing or if it's a change in my reading habits, but that's been impossible for me to do lately. I cannot read in large chunks for any book on a given day. So this was refreshing in that regard for me. Like, it's a very subjective reading experience, but I could not put it down.
Cool.
Cool. Was there any other aspects that we should talk about? I'm trying to think. We already covered the android, and yeah, I think there's more to her than meets the eye. I'm very, very
For
curious
sure.
about what's going on with her.
Yeah. I hope that relationships get explored a bit more, because, like I say, there aren't really any strong ones, even ones we could consider friendships. That we thought that Wyatt was going to be involved in story more as a friendship, and certainly when she goes to see Wyatt, that is promised, but it hasn't really developed into anything yet. But there seems to be this small circle that outside the cabal that seem to know what's going on, and that seem to want to get together and fix things for the better and for changing, but maybe with disastrous consequences. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'm eager to find out what else is going to happen there, because I want to find out how this escalates.
Yeah. All right, so are we ready to move on to the short story?
Short story?
Yeah.
Nothing short about it.
Novellissimo.
Novelette.
No. Novelette. I don't. What language was I speaking just then? Was it Italian?
Let's say yes. I mean,
sure,
somebody can correct us in by
Sure,
contacting us in comments, but like,
Oh, stop
Novelette.
stop trying to make up words in languages you have no business speaking. Okay.
Novelette.
Novelette.
Beautiful.
I didn't know you could speak Italian, but
And that's French. The Star Stealers by Edmond Hamilton,
Yeah.
yes.
about a rogue black hole that's trying to steal our sun.
Aren't all black holes rogue? You know, I'm just gonna put that out there.
I was
Oh man.
semi-eager, semi-dreading this discussion, because I know Chris is going to have a few new
I
black
get
hole
myself,
jokes.
probably. Yeah, I've never met a black hole that didn't have bad intentions. Oh God!
Jeez.
Get me a lolly to suck while this is going on, so I can kind of Can, you know. As it turned out, it wasn't a black hole, though. It was just, although I have to say that was a bit weird, it was just a dying sun that didn't make a black hole.
Yeah.
Or dying star.
Giant star that turned into a place that people, things, whatever they were, lived. That sucked up the planets. That very strange. This when I finished this, I was like, "Is this the worst Star Trek plot ever?"
Or the first Star Trek plot ever.
Well, the first Star Trek plot. Yeah, I was like, I underlined Federation. I was like, "Oh, that's where he got that from." You know.
And apparently, it also influenced, or I don't think it's known whether or not it did, but it seems like it may have influenced Lovecraft. The description of the aliens apparently resemble the Cthulhu monster, I guess, and possibly the city as well. I haven't read any Lovecraft. All I know about it is from reading The City We Became. But I think the city might also be possibly an influence.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. The creatures were kind of a cosmic horror type show, and I think Lovecraft had much better horrific descriptions of cosmic beings, but these guys were just kind of cone creatures with weird arms or whatever.
It didn't help that he kept calling them cones.
I know.
I feel no sense of any awe for these creatures that are moving.
It's kind of funny.
That are trying to swallow your son. They're cones.
I'm like, oh, waffle cone, sugar cone, what's the?
Man.
A lot of this
Sorry,
was,
Chris, were you saying something?
Yeah. A lot of this between the cone people, the Dark Star, all that kind of stuff. I was like, right, they would introduce these concepts and then do nothing with it, if you know what I mean. It was like, okay, this is going to be reasons or something here, but basically all we got was, we're going to steal a star, we need a new sun, and we're not going to fight for it because we'd lose, so we're going to steal it.
Yeah.
And murder 15 billion people or something.
He would say that, and then he would say that, and then in the next page he would say that again, and then the next page he would say it again, and I found a lot of repetition in this story.
Now you've read Blood Meridian with us. Anyway.
Ooh, hate. I do not. Just for the record, I don't share this hate that Forrest just displayed for one of the greatest American novels of all time.
Well, all I said was that it repeats. I didn't make any other comments, assuming I remember to edit out one.
But
oh god!
Wow. I plead the fifth. All right. No, but the information he was giving us was repetitive, not just like words or anything like. But he like the first chapter, he told us the same thing several times over, and I was just like, okay, I get it. And let's go on to chapter 2. I thought it was neat that we had Federation starships. I was like, oh, that's cool. And and this is written in 1929. And it was published in one of the magazines, Amazing Stories or something like that, and the pulp magazines. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's all cool stuff that I like. Maybe this would go somewhere. And then it was so campy, and it was. I mean, I don't know. It was like an episode of Saturday Night Live, and they were just acting it out on the screen, and I was laughing. It was too long.
When they got captured, and first when they're like, I'm gonna go kill that thing, whatever is. They got captured, and then the captain tells them the story, and I was like, okay, the rest of it is going to be them trying to destroy the thing that they discovered. And It was. It was a bunch of shooting and guns and whatnot, but it had a lot of interesting aspects to it. Though until that point, I think around there it lost my interest because I don't like action scenes in general, and this one wasn't particularly compelling. I refuse to believe that you've got that much technology to go just happily destroy whatever it was that was going to eat your star. But it did send me down a bit of a rabbit hole on the history of like when black holes were first postulated and what this was based on. And it's also interesting because I guess when was it? Theory of relativity was 1905, 1915. 1915 was general relativity. And this was 1929. And I can see how in 1700s was some guy named John Mitchell postulated the existence of a star that is so big that light can't escape from it. So the dark star bit probably came from there. But if it is from relativity, I've been wondering about how the science fiction authors get their science. Are a lot of them scientists who also wrote science fiction? Or like what did science communication at the time look like that all these authors, that was mainstream or well known enough that they wrote stories about it?
No Wikipedia.
No Wikipedia.
That's the biggest problem. No Wikipedia for them to do. This story specifically reads very pulpy, in terms of it was almost like a soap opera. I mean, they had the setup that basically the start of it is Armageddon. So Bruce Willis probably loves this story, as it turns out. But the start is very pulpy. They get captured. Well, they crash land on the planet. The things have shot everything down and murdered everybody, but then they capture them and put them in a cell. For some reason, rather than murdering them, they keep them there for all time, and then they escape out the window. They seriously escape out the window.
Yes.
Well, they did take one of the prisoners and experiment on him, and vivisect them. And
indeed.
Because
but the other three they thought were fine.
Maybe they were going to do more, so.
I like this fascination with the idea that when aliens get a hold of us, the first thing that they're going to do is cut us open. That's probably what all that tells us is that's probably what humans will do when they meet an alien.
Yeah, you're right.
and the MacGuffin was something fell out of somebody's pocket that was long and stretchy and springy.
Yeah. So
yes,
out of the cone's pocket, something fell out of the cone's pocket,
and
they all go to sleep at the same time when the gong sounds.
Yeah, everybody goes to sleep at the same time for 4 hours. Yep, that's the night time. I love that one. It was a big revelation. That alarm must mean it's night time.
Yeah. And
then, the biggest non-shock of them all when they're like, "We're out of bullets. How are we going to deal with this situation?" I was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake, they're going to ram the ship." But the ram the ship didn't happen for another 2 pages. And I was like, maybe we've just seen an awful lot of these stories over time, but they were obviously going to ram the ship into the thing. They should have done it at the start before all the day. And the fact that everybody was shooting around them, and they were just kind of sitting there going, "What are we going to do?" Like as if nobody was shooting at them. I don't know. It was very campy. It was very, very campy.
Oh, campy and cringy.
Oh, and the best part was they came back. They were heroes of the universe, right?
I think I know what you're gonna say.
And one of them opened the beauty parlor.
Yes.
You can have anything. Do you want to get your nails done?
And she didn't just go to the beauty parlor. She went to the beauty parlor like all women of her sex,
like all women
are likely to do across the ages will want to do.
Yep, that's.
Oh my god, that bit I was like,
aren't you going there after we're done with this today?
Yes. I must. God. I laughed like too much. Drink. I must get that makeup fixed.
I was a commander in a starship, but you know what I've always wanted to do that I could never do beforehand? What the fuck?
Well, she had that great line of dialogue. The sun, the good old sun that we fought for and saved, our son till the end of time. And I'm like, wow.
It's right up there with Neil Armstrong.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Oh my. All right.
It was clever. I had a thought that
Beauty porn.
I had to put the book down and put my head in my hands when I read the thing about the beauty parlor, but we'll move on. So it's kind of interesting. This is what I compare it to, and I think this is clever, like taking smaller known things and scaling them up to galactic levels. The stealing of the star from the edge of the galaxy, it's kind of like, stealing the goats from the edge of the farm when no one is watching them. I really like that. It's clever. But also the image that I've put in my head over that comparison is ridiculous.
So the goats are going, where's everybody going here? We'll follow. Run. Where are all those guys going? Let's follow them. We don't know, no choice, but we need to follow them. Yeah.
And then one of the goats comes back and needs to go to the beauty parlor pronto.
Or the fact when they did it all, and they managed to change the course enough that they all just looked at the mini-map and looked to see how close they came to it sucking everything out of the galaxy or not. Like it was literally a millimeter. And I was like, but no.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I enjoyed it until it got to the action bit. And then I couldn't take anything seriously.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Not one black hole joke needed. See?
Yeah,
The beauty parlor was all it needed.
Yeah.
I mean, and the thing is, I grew up watching some campy sci-fi stuff, right? Yeah, I watched Buck Rogers, and I watched the original Battlestar Galactica, and so and even like ISIS and Shazam on TV and stuff. I watched some campy stuff when I was growing up. And I can see the inspiration for all that right here. It's all there, and yeah, just it was amusing going through it and reading this stuff and just being like shaking my head in amusement. Like I wasn't like oh, this is boring or this is this is like or it wasn't like gross and it wasn't like horrible. It was just, I don't know, it just kept going and it was amusing. It got repetitive sometimes, but it's just watching these guys standing on a bridge and saying, look at Neptune vanished far behind, and rocketing out and out of into the void, and up on the bridge, whatever they call it, and I was like, just like, this is the trouble with tribbles in Star Trek or something, and it's that can't be Star Trek. And there were some really good episodes in Star Trek, but there were some campy ones too, and that's it's right here. This can be adapted.
Yeah,
guaranteed. Definitely.
Did anyone else read Bridge Room as Bridegroom?
Yes. First time. I was like, bridegroom? This is a weird place for this to start, but when you see the beauty parlor later, you're like, it all makes sense. Yeah.
That's why she needed to go to the beauty parlor. She was getting married.
Part of her. She was.
Yeah.
Oh, and the alien overlord picked the most important person of the group, of course, automatically, and then cut open the other one.
The pilot, the red shirt.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, he was the red shirt.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh, well. But good fun.
Wow. All of our This is the origins of all of our favorite sci-fi for the 60s and 70s.
Back in 1929. Ooh, red
great.
shirts. Oh.
Red shirts. There
Yes,
we go.
the
Yeah,
John
book.
Scalzi book.
Indeed.
Interesting. I didn't make that connection. No. Cool. So,
The line on the red church book says they were expendable.
oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Any good insights here?
But it was a fun read.
Yeah.
Like I thought it was going to be very long because it's by far and away the longest one we've read for this entire run, and I kind of set myself aside 3 hours because everything's been reading really slow to me at the moment, and I was done with it very quickly. Like it was not arduous at all, just kind of a bit head scratching in some places, and maybe an inspiration for lots of stuff that I've read after that, like the Old Man's War books and that kind of stuff, kind of have their roots in some of what happened when they landed the planet here. It's not totally alien from that. So, 1929, gotta forgive
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a fun story. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I wish it was shorter, but mostly because of my preference for action scenes. I don't like them. And or at least I don't enjoy them. And this one didn't particularly have anything that gripped my attention. It was just like any other action scene. So, but until we got to that point, I was enjoying it quite a bit. I was very curious to see what that rogue Dark Star was, and and I think I really enjoyed the description of how that Dark Star came to be. How I don't buy how we got that information, but I like the information that we got about how their son died, that they're such a long-lived race, that that their son died, and then they started crashing their planets into the sun.
Yeah.
And I did have sorry.
You mean your alien overlords never just stop and explain things to you?
With pictures, with enough
with
detail that I can build a whole story by myself. The beauty parlor lady does that for me every day.
The science wasn't great in this. The planets crashing in to supercharge your sun and not affect its orbits and stuff was kind of a bit okay. Gloss over it. We're fine.
And apparently that only lasted a few centuries. But anyway, I didn't see the word millions anywhere, but that's fine. Also, yeah, I was going to say 80 light speeds, but it was just a few years after relativity, so that's fine too.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, but it was a fun story. I did enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Indeed.
Next week is going to be The Conquest of Gola by Leslie F. Stone, which is similarly long. And I'm not sure, Chris and Jared, did you guys talk about it before we started recording? But to about 70 to 100 pages of Embassytown, wherever that takes us.
Yeah, it
The end
takes
of
us
part
right to
six.
the
Okay, the end of part 6.
part 6.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's as far as we'll go for next week if you're following along with us. And thank you so much for listening. We'll see you again in a week. Bye.